Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultist back again with another logic video. I'm using the turn-based scene because it's, an RPG kind of setting, but today we're actually covering something that isn't necessarily related to turn-based combat, and that's quest giving. I have my little NPC here, who is non-movable and non-collidable, and posed. And I have a little chip here, which, by the way, if you ever want to know how to open this stuff, L1 and X scopes you in and opens the chips. And we have the talk chip in here, and if you look at our NPC dialogue tutorial, it tells you how to put all this stuff together, more or less. The only thing majorly that we've added is when you close out the dialogue and accept the quest, there's a timeline that activates a variable. And we're going to talk about that variable now. I have a piece of material that's invisible and non-collidable with a chip on it. Inside, we have a variable called quest. It has an initial value of 0 and a minimum value of 0 with a maximum value of 1000, although the maximum value doesn't matter that much. And you could probably just go ahead and set it to persist in dream, since this is a, multi-scene quest, probably, theoretically. But I would like to explain how calculators, basically, this cannot be hammered in enough, I've talked about it before, but calculators essentially can be used to spread one variable into multiple outcomes. Like, I could have 50 doors attached to one variable, they would stay constantly open, and I could trigger them one at a time, and as long as they're triggered in a linear fashion, they will, it'll be just dandy. But I'll talk about how the process is done. First, we have this variable, which is set to set, and has an operation value of 1. So it's going to raise this to 1. Now what happens when we have the variable equal to 1? I've set the calculator to equal, and I set to 1, just so you know. So when it's equal to 1, it'll activate this timeline. On this timeline is a couple of keyframes and a text displayer that gives the name of the quest, indicating that it's begun. And there is another variable, set to set, which now adds 2. So this won't replay afterward because the variable will be at 2, and it will no longer be equal. I've also got an orchestra stinger in here just for extra effect, which was made by Dr. Bazinga. It's a community asset, and it's available. I just thought I'd, give him a shout out, because he's there, and he made this. Next up, I have this calculator, which is set to greater than, and I put it at 1.99, so if it's at 2, this little fellow will be active, and he activates an action recorder, which turns on this zone within this chip. This mailbox thing is where our quest ends. This is the zone in question, which is set to detect player, which is a tag on this character right here. I guess if you want to look at the tag, we can always open it up. It's right there, inside here. And it will activate a switch, which will activate a timeline, set to sustain, although you could set it to play once. I think that'd be just fine. And all this does is set the variable to 3. Make sure it's on the set option and not the add option. And then once that is triggered, it will activate this quest complete. timeline, which will in turn set the value of the variable to 4, preventing any further, messing around with the system. Basically, after that, the quest is complete. This variable will no longer be able to be affected because there's no more ways to trigger it because they're all empty. Because once you go past equals, it's never going to work again. But if you want something to stay constantly available during the quest, don't forget to use the greater than value. Oh, another thing I kind of got mixed up. This actually doesn't trigger the zone. What it does is it shuts off this fellow's talk chip. This one that's set to equal triggers the zone, and the reason why I set it to equal is because once it's done being equal, once it's above equal, this will automatically shut off and you won't be able to trigger it twice. So yeah, you could presumably make an entire quest line in a game, like a big long adventure with just one single variable if you use it correctly and keep your math in mind. Just remember that the value of the variable is incredibly important. I would write it down on a piece of paper. That's what I do. Recently I remade Fetch Quest and I made like multiple dungeons hooked up to a single variable, so it's pretty keen. Just so long as your game is linear. Or linear-ish. Because if you trigger them out of order, you could potentially, prematurely have more value than you want. So you want it to kind of be linear. You could use multiple variables, though, in certain cases, because, it would be nice to have some non-linear collectibles and such. But anyway, let's go ahead and do our quest and see it in action. Let's go ahead and talk. I have an urgent delivery to make, but my leg is broken. Please take this for me. And now the quest is active. And then we go over here. And the quest is complete, because we've made the delivery. I feel like even with a broken leg, he could have made it this far. But it's just a simple test to show how this thing works. Now let's take a look at the variable. It's set to 4. If you wanted some kind of effect upon completion, just hook it up to a calculator set to greater than whatever the final value is. Like if you wanted the player to unlock a sword, you would just have it connected to a variable that says greater than, and then you could use that special sword or that whatever. But yeah, that's how quest giving works. Hopefully you found this helpful and illuminating. It's very simple, and the process would work the same even if there were multiple steps to the quest. You just need way more of these. And there are different methods of going about it. For instance, you could directly trigger some of these rather than using the equal symbol. I just think it's more convenient to do that because there's less wiring. Because, I could have hooked this up, to just a timeline and not had the equals set up. But I just think it's more easy this way. However, it might get confusing if you had a really long quest with a lot of different steps. But if you're careful and you keep your wits about you, it probably will work just fine. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts, leave a comment. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. If you would like to support us financially, consider clicking the join button to become a member and unlock perks. You can also leave a super thanks in the comments, which we would appreciate, or a one-time donation on Ko-fi, link in the description. That's all for now. Goodbye.